On a Tuesday morning in September, Natalie brought groceries, and I looked at what she put in the refrigerator, and I noticed several things. The first thing I noticed was the dates. The yogurt she placed on the second shelf had a best before date of 4 days prior. The bread she put in the bread drawer had been reduced for quick sale, which is marked with the specific sticker that supermarkets use when something is approaching, or past its useful window. The eggs were correct. Eggs keep. But the prepackaged salmon had a sell-by of yesterday. The second thing I noticed was the quality. Not snobbery. I have been a plain eater my whole life, and I have never required the expensive version of anything when the ordinary version is fine. What I noticed was the specific quality of produce bought at the discount section of a store. The items that are discounted because they are not at their best. The third thing I noticed was the credit card receipt that fell out of the grocery bag when Natalie set it on the counter. I picked it up before she saw me pick it up. The total for the groceries was $34.17. The card used was a Visa ending in 4,421. The card ending in 4,421 was not Natalie's card. It was mine. I know my own card numbers the way you know any number you have been using for years. Not by deliberate memorization, but by accumulated familiarity. The way you know a phone number you have dialed 1,000 times. The Visa ending in 4,421 had been mine since 2011. I had not given Natalie permission to use it. I put the receipt in my pocket. I went to the living room. I sat in my chair, and I thought about what I had found. Natalie Huang Park is my daughter-in-law. She married my son Raymond in 2016, and they have been living in the house. My house. The house I have owned since 1978. Since 2020, when Raymond's work situation changed, and they needed the space, and I needed, or was told I needed, the company. I'm 77 years old, and I am in good health for 77, which is to say that I take several medications, and my knees are not what they were, and I sleep 8 hours rather than 6. But I drive myself, and I cook my own meals when I am cook my own meals. Permitted to, and I have not forgotten anything significant since about 2019, when I forgot where I left my reading glasses, which is not significant. The groceries with the expired dates were not the first indication. They were the third or fourth indication, the one that arrived with documentary evidence in the form of a receipt. The first indication had been the credit card statements, which I had been examining with increased attention since July, when a charge appeared for a spa in Scottsdale that I had definitely not attended. The statements showed a pattern that, once I saw it, was obvious. My card was being used for things that were not mine. Clothing stores I had not entered. Restaurants I had not visited. A hotel stay in San Francisco in August when I had been home in Sacramento. The second indication had been the state of the refrigerator, which had been progressively less well stocked with things I wanted, and progressively better stocked with things that were cheap and near expired, while the charges on my card for groceries had not decreased proportionally. The receipt in my pocket was the third indication, and it was the one that was verifiable. I had the receipt, I had the card number, I had the date, and I could compare all three to the credit card statement. I also had the refrigerator. My name is Dorothy Constance Meadows Park. I am 77 years old. I spent 31 years as a senior systems administrator at a technology company in Sacramento, and I retired in 2013. And I have not stopped understanding technology because I stopped being employed by a company that used it. I understand technology the way I understand my credit card number, by accumulated familiarity, by years of use, by the specific attention of someone for whom the mechanisms are interesting rather than opaque. The refrigerator in the kitchen of my house is a Samsung Family Hub model that was installed in 2021, which Raymond had decided was a good idea because it connects to the internet and allows you to order groceries through its touchscreen, and because Raymond likes appliances that connect to the internet even when the connection is not strictly necessary. The refrigerator was connected to a payment method. I had not set up the refrigerator's payment method. Raymond had set it up in 2021, which meant the card on file was whoever's card Raymond had used when he configured the device. I stood up from my chair and I went to the kitchen. The Samsung Family Hub refrigerator has a 21-inch touchscreen on the right-hand door. The touchscreen displays the internal camera view. You can see what is in the refrigerator without opening it, which is a feature whose utility I have always found questionable, but which is technically interesting. And it has a meal planning function, a grocery ordering function, a calendar, and in a notes function where members of the household can leave messages for each other. The grocery ordering function connects to several delivery services and allows you to order food directly through the refrigerator's interface. This is the feature that Raymond had been most enthusiastic about in 2021, and that, in my assessment, had been used approximately 6 times since installation. I stood in front of the touchscreen. I navigated to the settings. I found the payment section. The default payment method on file was a Visa card. I pressed the information icon. The last 4 digits displayed were 7,734. I did not recognize 7,734 as my card. I went to my bedroom and I got the small folder in which I keep the cards I don't use daily, the ones whose numbers I don't know by heart. I found my second Visa, the one I had opened in 2019 as an emergency card and which I rarely used. The last 4 digits were 7,734. So, the refrigerator was connected to my second Visa card. Not Natalie's card, not Raymond's card. Mine, the one I rarely used and had not thought about in some months. This required some thought. If Raymond had set up the refrigerator in 2021, and if he had used my card to do it, perhaps finding the card in a drawer, perhaps asking me and my not remembering the asking, perhaps simply using it without asking, then the card on file was mine. The orders through the refrigerator would charge my card. This was interesting for 2 reasons. The first was that I now had a direct payment connection from the refrigerator to a card I controlled, which meant I could use the refrigerator's grocery ordering function, and the charges would come to me, not to Natalie's card, not to Raymond's card, not to Raymond's card. Died. The second was that Natalie, when she had been using my primary Visa, ending in 4,421, for her personal purchases, had apparently not noticed that the refrigerator was connected to a different card, my emergency Visa, rather than to hers or Raymond's. I sat with this information for several days. During those several days, I also sat with the credit card statements, which I had requested in full going back 6 months. The statements showed what I had suspected. My primary Visa had been used for approximately $4,200 in charges over 6 months that I had not made. The charges were varied: clothing, restaurants, spa, hotel, several online retailers, and they were consistent with Natalie's habits and preferences as I understood them from 4 years of shared household. I thought about what to do. I thought about calling Raymond. Raymond is my son, and he loves me in the way that sons love their mothers when they are not paying close attention, which is the way that produces warmth without awareness. Calling Raymond would produce a conversation in which Natalie's behavior was either defended or explained away, because Raymond has been in the habit of explaining away for 4 years. I thought about calling the credit card company and reporting the unauthorized use. This was correct from a financial protection standpoint, and I intended to do it. But doing it without evidence beyond the statements and the receipt would produce a dispute process that was uncertain and lengthy. I thought about the refrigerator. The refrigerator had a touchscreen and an ordering function, and a payment method connected to my card. The ordering function connected to several delivery services. The delivery services had, as part of their inventory, food and household items of various kinds, including the high-end food and equipment categories that the delivery services stock for customers who want them. I thought about the orphanage. St. Joseph's Home for Children in Sacramento is an institution I've been aware of since my children were small. Raymond had briefly attended a summer program there before we moved to a different neighborhood, and I had been involved in fundraising drive for them in the mid-1990s. They are a legitimate charitable organization with real needs and a real address, and the specific quality of places that do important work without adequate resources. I opened the refrigerator's touchscreen. I navigated to the ordering function. I did not order from my emergency visa, because Natalie had, at some point, connected her own card to one of the refrigerator's grocery delivery accounts as an alternative payment method. I found it in the third delivery service account, listed as a secondary payment option. And I could buy these. I could even renting million to agency Irisak. The shopping row was still wide in a secondary payment option, and I could set it as the default, which I did. Then I began to order. I want to be precise about what I ordered and where it went, because precision matters, and because the account should be honest. I did not order frivolously. I ordered with the specific attention of a former systems administrator who understands that actions have audit trails, and that the audit trail of what I was doing would be examined by anyone who looked carefully at the credit card statements. I ordered things that were defensible: food, household items, equipment that serves a clear purpose. I ordered them to a recipient who would genuinely benefit. The first order was groceries, real groceries, the kind that are fresh and of good quality, delivered to St. Joseph's Home for Children at the address I had from the 1990s, fundraising materials that I found in a filing cabinet in the garage. I ordered enough fresh produce, dairy bread, and protein for approximately a week's worth of meals for a household of the size I estimated St. Joseph's to be. The total was $312. The second order was more substantial. St. Joseph's had a kitchen, and kitchens require equipment, and equipment wears out. I ordered a commercial-grade stand mixer, 2 large stock pots, a food processor, and a set of professional knives. The total was $1,847. The third order was the one I spent the most time on. I had navigated through the delivery services interface to the premium food section, the section where the lobster and the aged steaks and the high-end charcuterie and the fine cheeses and the wines live. I ordered for a celebration dinner for 100 people, because 100 seemed like a reasonable number for an institutional celebration, and because St. Joseph's could certainly use a celebration. The lobsters were from Maine. The steaks were from a ranch in Colorado whose reputation I had seen mentioned in cooking publications I read. The wine was from a Napa Valley winery whose name I recognized because my husband Martin had bought a bottle from them for our 40th anniversary in 2008, and it had been excellent. The total for the third order was $14,200. I then ordered household items, a commercial washing machine. St. Joseph's surely did a great deal of laundry. A dishwasher to match, 2 commercial-grade dryers, and a set of institutional quality bedding. The total was $28,400. I paused at this point, and I thought about what I was doing and whether it was the right thing. The thinking took approximately 20 minutes. What I concluded, the money was being charged to Natalie's card. The money going to Natalie's card was money she had apparently obtained through unauthorized use of my card, the $4,200 over 6 months that I had documented. The money I was now directing from her card to St. Joseph's was going to a genuine charitable purpose. The scales did not balance perfectly. The amounts were different. The mechanisms were different. But the general principle was one I could defend. I was redirecting from someone who had taken to someone who needed. I also understood that what I was doing had legal complexity that I was not fully qualified to assess, which is why I had already, 3 days earlier, called my attorney. His name is Gordon Chu, and he has been my attorney since 27, and he is the specific kind of attorney who listens to a situation and tells you what is true about it rather than what you want to hear. I had called him 3 days earlier, and I had described what I had found on the credit card statements, and I asked what my options were. He had said, "You have clear grounds to dispute the unauthorized charges with the credit card company and to file a police report for unauthorized use of a credit card." Both of those are straightforward. What about the refrigerator? I said. There was a pause. Tell me about the refrigerator, he said. I told him about the refrigerator. There was a longer pause. Then, Dorothy, before you do anything with the refrigerator, I need to understand the payment situation exactly. If the card connected to the refrigerator is Natalie's card, and if you use the refrigerator to make purchases on that card without her authorization, that would be the same thing she's doing to you. I understand that, I said. What if Natalie connected her own card to the refrigerator's account herself? What if the card is on there as her designated payment method for a shared household account that she set up? Then, he said slowly, the situation is more complicated. The household account is arguably a shared account if she set it up as such. But the legal question of whether you can make purchases on a card that another person has designated as the payment method for a shared account. He stopped. That is not a question I can answer in 30 seconds. Take the time you need, I said. He called me back the next day. He said, here is my assessment, which is not a guarantee and which you should treat as one attorney's opinion. If Natalie set up a household account and designated her card as the payment method for that account, she has implicitly authorized purchases on that card through that account. Whether she intended to authorize your purchases specifically is a separate question, but the authorization of a payment method for a household account is a general authorization for household purchases through that account. The charitable donation complicates things because of the magnitude. I would recommend staying below a total that would constitute criminal theft under California statute, which at current thresholds is $950 for misdemeanor. Above that, it's a felony. I was quiet for a moment. Gordon, she took $4,200 from my card over 6 months? I know, he said. You should document everything and file the police report. But two wrongs don't... I'm not proposing two wrongs, I said. I'm proposing that the money that has been redirected from my account over 6 months should be redirected back in a single action to a charitable cause using a mechanism that Natalie set up herself in this household. The net financial harm to Natalie is commensurate with the harm she has caused me. The beneficiary is a children's home. He was quiet for a long time. I'm going to say something that I cannot say in my professional capacity, he said, unofficially, as someone who has known you for 17 years. Say it, I said. Stay well under $4,200 on the card, he said. And document everything you order, where it's going, and why. If this ends up in front of anyone, the documentation is your defense. I had stayed well under. The orders I placed through the refrigerator totaled $3,847. I had documented everything. Natalie noticed the charges on Thursday evening, 4 days after I had placed the orders. I know this because she came to the kitchen at 7:15 in the evening with her phone in her hand, and the expression of someone who has just received information that is alarming, and who has not yet determined what to do about it. I was at the kitchen table having my evening tea. This is where I have my evening tea, at the kitchen table at 7:15 every evening. And this routine has been consistent enough that Natalie knows where to find me at 7:15. She said, there are charges on my card. She held the phone toward me. Did you use my card? I looked at the phone. The charges she was indicating were the St. Joseph's delivery orders. I could see the delivery company name on the statement. I used the refrigerator's ordering function, I said. The refrigerator is connected to the card you set as the default payment method. She stared at me. I set my card on there for when I order things through the refrigerator. I didn't authorize you to. The refrigerator is in my house, I said. You set up an account through an appliance in my house and connected your card to it. I used the account to order from the appliance. If you did not intend to authorize purchases through the account, you should not have set the account up with your card in a household you share with someone else. Share with someone else. She stopped. Groceries, I said, and some household equipment, all delivered to St. Joseph's Home for Children on Stockton Boulevard. I've kept the receipts if you'd like to see them. You ordered $3,800 worth of things to a children's home, she said. Using my card. Yes, I said. Your card, which you connected to the refrigerator in my house. The card that you set as the default payment method for an account in a household you share. She was very still. I'm disputing these charges, she said. Of course, I said. You're welcome to contact your credit card company. They'll ask about the delivery address and the itemized purchases and the account through which the orders were placed. I have copies of all of that. I also have copies of my credit card statements from the past 6 months, which I have given to my attorney, and the receipt from Tuesday with the card number ending in 4,421. I said the last 2 items calmly, with the specific quality of someone who is producing information rather than making a threat. Natalie looked at me. The calculations she was doing, the assessment of what I had just told her and what it meant for her position, was visible in her face in the way that calculations are visible in faces when the person doing the calculating is genuinely alarmed. You've been going through my credit card, she said. I've been going through mine, I said, the one ending in 4,421. There have been charges on it that I did not make. Spa visits, restaurants, a hotel in San Francisco in August. My attorney has the statements. She said nothing. Natalie, I said, I am not interested in a legal battle with you, because a legal battle with you is a legal battle with my son's marriage, and that is not what I want. I want the $4,200 that has left my account without my authorization to be returned to my account. I want you to remove your access to my credit card. I want the groceries in this house to be appropriate and fresh, which is what I'm entitled to in my own home. And I want us to understand each other. You want us to understand each other, she said. Yes, I said. I'm 77 years old, and I am not senile, and I am not easily managed. I spent 31 years managing systems that were considerably more complex than a household credit card situation, and I have a good attorney and good documentation, and the specific quality of someone who has dealt with complicated situations and who knows how to document them. I would very much prefer to not need any of that. But I have it, and you should know I have it. She looked at me for a long time. Then she looked at the refrigerator. The refrigerator, she said. Yes. You use the refrigerator, she said. You're right, I said. Luxury goods are hard to digest, especially when they arrive as a credit card statement. She sat down at the kitchen table. She did not sit down with the warmth of someone joining me for tea. She sat down with the heaviness of someone who needs to sit. I became a systems administrator the way most people of my generation became what they became, by doing the work that was available and discovering that the work was something I was good at, and that the being good at it opened the next door, which opened the next. I came to technology in 1975. At 28, when I took a job as a data entry operator at a regional insurance company in Sacramento, because data entry paid better than the clerical work I had been doing, and because I needed to pay for the apartment I had just signed a lease on and for the courses I had enrolled in at the community college. The courses were accounting initially, because accounting seemed like a stable skill. They became computer science within 2 semesters because the computer science courses were where the interesting things were happening. In 1975, interesting things happening in computer science meant mainframes and batch processing, and the specific excitement of an industry that was beginning to understand that the computation that had previously been accessible only to largest size institutions was going to become accessible to everyone. This was not obvious in 1975. It was visible if you were paying attention, which I was. The data entry job became a junior programmer position in 1977, which became a systems analyst position in 1981, which became a senior systems administrator position at the technology company where I spent the bulk of my career From 1982 to 2013, 31 years of managing the systems that the company ran on, the networks, the servers, the databases, the connections between all of these, and eventually the connections between these and the internet, and the cloud infrastructure, and the mobile devices and the smart appliances that began appearing in the late 2000s. Smart appliances were interesting to me professionally before they became a feature of my household. The refrigerator that connects to the internet and allows you to see its contents and order from it is, from a systems administration standpoint, a device on a network, a node that connects to other nodes, that has a payment integration, that has an account structure and a settings configuration, and a default payment method that can be changed by anyone with access to the device's settings interface. Understanding how a device connects to a network and how its payment integration works is not esoteric knowledge for a retired systems administrator. It is the fundamental literacy of a career spent in exactly this kind of system. When Raymond installed the Family Hub in 2021, with the enthusiasm of a man who likes internet-connected appliances, and who had not considered the specific implications of connecting such an appliance to a payment method in a household with more than one financial actor, I understood the implications in approximately 10 minutes. I had not said anything at the time, because at the time I had not yet found the receipt with the 4421 number, and because understanding that a vulnerability exists is not the same as needing to address it. Martin used to say that I thought about technology the way other people think about weather, not as something to be feared or celebrated, but as a condition of the world that has specific properties and that rewards understanding those properties. This was accurate. I have always found technology interesting in the specific way that a mechanic finds engines interesting, not for their mystique, but for their logic, the way the parts connect to each other and the way the connection produces a function. The refrigerator's logic was not complicated. A payment method is connected to an account. An account is used to place orders. Orders are charged to the connected payment method. The person who controls the settings controls the connection. I had controlled the settings for 3 days before the orders were placed. And during those 3 days, I had moved Natalie's card from secondary to default, and I had made the orders I chose to make. The logic was entirely clear. The ethics required more thought. Martin would have appreciated that I gave the ethics the thought they deserved. He was a man who believed that the technically possible was not automatically the ethically correct, which is a belief I have always shared, and sharing it with him across 41 years of marriage had been one of the pleasures of the marriage. He would have liked the result. I am fairly sure of this. Raymond came home at 8:30 on Thursday, 90 minutes after my kitchen conversation with Natalie. He came in through the garage, which is how he always comes in, and he set his briefcase on the counter, and he looked at Natalie, who was still at the kitchen table, and he looked at me, and he looked at the refrigerator. "What happened?" he said. I let Natalie explain, because it was her situation to explain, and because listening to how someone explains something tells you a great deal about their understanding of it. Natalie explained it in the way I had expected. She described the charges on her card. She described my use of the refrigerator's ordering function. She described the delivery to St. Joseph's. She did not mention the credit card statements or the receipt or Gordon Chew. Raymond listened. He has his father's quality of listening. The complete attention, the absence of the impulse to interrupt. When Natalie finished, he was quiet for a moment. "Mom," he said, "why did you order $3,800 worth of groceries and equipment to a children's home?" "Because St. Joseph's could use them," I said. "And because the card connected to the refrigerator was one that I believe should be used for purposes of this kind." "Whose card was it?" he said. "It was on the refrigerator's account as the default payment method," I said. "I changed the default to use it for the orders." "Whose card?" he said again. I looked at him. He looked at me. He's 52 years old, and he is my son, and I know his face the way I know my own credit card number, and the face he was making in that moment was the face of a man who is beginning to understand something he has been not understanding. And who is? Not entirely glad of the understanding. Natalie's card, I said. He turned to Natalie. You put your card on Mom's refrigerator? It's the household refrigerator, Natalie said. I put it there to use when I order things. The household refrigerator is in my mother's house, Raymond said. The specific quality of the statement, the emphasis on my mother's house, was not aggressive, but it was real, Raymond, I said. There are some other things you should know. I put the credit card statements on the table, the ones I'd printed and organized by category. These are my statements from the past 6 months. I've highlighted the charges I did not make. He looked at the statements. He did not look at them for a long time. He did not need to. The highlighted charges were visible and the pattern was clear. This is $4,200, he said. Yes, I said. Over 6 months, he said. Yes, I said. He looked at Natalie. Natalie looked at the table. Natalie, he said, I need you to explain these. What followed was the kind of conversation that I have heard about from other families across the years. The conversation where a thing that has been not seen is suddenly visible, and the not seeing is itself part of what needs to be addressed. Raymond had been not seeing because he had been not looking, which is different from not seeing because there is nothing to see. He had loved his wife and trusted her, and had not been in the habit of examining what was happening in the household with the attention that examination would have required. I stayed at the kitchen table for the first 30 minutes of the conversation because it was my kitchen table and my credit card statements and my house. Then I said that I was going to bed and that the three of us would continue the conversation in the morning, and I went to my room. The conversation in the morning was quieter than the Thursday evening had been. Natalie had, overnight, arrived at the specific quality of honesty that people arrive at when the alternative to honesty is worse than the honesty itself. She acknowledged the charges. She did not have a defense that she was prepared to make aloud. Raymond said, looking at the floor. Mom, the groceries, the expired stuff and the discount things. Was that with your card too? Yes, I said. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I'm sorry. I should have been paying attention. Yes, I said. You should have. I had called St. Joseph's on the Wednesday morning before the deliveries arrived, the day after I placed the orders, to let them know that a donation was coming and to explain what it was. Not because the explanation was legally required, but because appearing without warning with large deliveries seemed like it would be confusing for an institutional kitchen. The director, a woman named Sister Margaret Ann, who had been running St. Joseph's for 14 years and who had the specific quality of institutional administrators who are doing important work with inadequate resources, received the call with the careful gratitude of someone who has learned to confirm that good news is real before allowing herself to be glad of it. A delivery to this address, she said. Food, equipment, and bedding? Yes. I said, from a food delivery service. The items are itemized on the order confirmation, which I'll email to you so your staff can verify the deliveries. And this is a donation. You're not requiring anything in return? It's a donation, I said. No strings. I said, no strings. May I ask who the donor is? She said. I thought about this. A concerned neighbor, I said. If you need a name for your records, use Dorothy Meadows Park. I had not used Natalie's name as the donor. This was a deliberate choice that I want to explain. The orders were placed on Natalie's card, and they would appear on Natalie's statement under the delivery service's name, not under mine. But the charitable donation itself, the recognition, the gratitude, the institutional record, I did not want to be attributed to Natalie, because Natalie had not chosen to make the donation. I had made it. The money had come from Natalie's card, which was a different matter from the donation being Natalie's. The deliveries arrived on Wednesday afternoon. The food delivery came first. The fresh produce and the high-end proteins and the cheeses and the wine, which Sister Margaret Ann had been somewhat puzzled by, but had accepted graciously and directed to the institutional refrigerators. The kitchen equipment came in a second delivery, and the bedding in a third. Sister Margaret Ann called me Thursday morning, before the Thursday evening conversation with Natalie. She said, "The children had the lobster last night. We've never served lobster. They thought it was extraordinary." There was a pause. "I've been doing this for 14 years, and I don't think I've been this glad of a donation in 14 years. "I'm glad," I said. "They should have extraordinary things sometimes." "The stand mixer," she said. "The cook has already made 3 batches of bread." If there's ever anything we can do, if you have grandchildren who need any of our programs, I'll keep it in mind, I said. "Thank you for calling." I had told Raymond and Natalie in the Friday morning conversation about the call from Sister Margaret Ann. I told it the way I tell things that have a complete picture that deserves to be seen completely, with the lobster and the bread and the cook who had wanted the mixer for 2 years. Raymond looked at the table. Natalie looked at the window. Neither of them said anything for a while. Then Natalie said the children had lobster. "Yes," I said. "Because of the refrigerator," she said. "Yes," I said. Gordon Chu handled the credit card dispute with the specific competence that 17 years of his handling my legal matters has produced in me the expectation of. He filed the dispute with my credit card company, submitted the documentation, the statements, the highlighted charges, the receipt, and initiated contact with Natalie's credit card company regarding the $3,847 in orders through the refrigerator. The resolution took 6 weeks. Legal resolutions take 6 weeks even when they are clear, because the process has steps, and the steps take time. The outcome: my credit card company reversed $3,600 of the $4,200 in disputed charges. The remaining $600 was in a gray area, charges where I could not definitively prove I had not authorized them, which is the frustrating reality of credit card disputes when the card has been used for things that are not verifiably impossible for me to have purchased. I accepted the $3,600 reversal as a good outcome. The $3,847 in refrigerator orders. Natalie's card company declined to reverse the charges, on the grounds that the purchases were made through an account that Natalie had set up, and that the delivery receipts confirmed delivery to a legitimate address. The purchases were food and household items, not fraudulent charges in the sense of purchases made by an unknown party. Gordon had advised me this was the likely outcome, which is why I had stayed under $4,200. The amounts were in net terms approximately offsetting. The net financial resolution, I was out approximately $600. Natalie was out $3,847. The difference was $3,247 in favor of St. Joseph's, which was, in Gordon's dry assessment, an unusual but not ineffective outcome. The household resolution took longer and was not handled by Gordon. Raymond sat down with me in October, 6 weeks after the Thursday evening kitchen conversation, and we had the conversation that parents and adult children have when something significant has happened between them, and when the adult child has spent 6 weeks processing it. Raymond is a processor. He takes time, he considers. He does not speak until he has something to say that he believes. This quality had always made him difficult to parent in certain ways, and is one of the reasons I trust what he says. He said, "I owe you an apology that is larger than the credit card situation. The credit card situation was bad, and I'm sorry about it. But the thing I need to apologize for is the not seeing. The 4 years of not seeing what was happening in your house with your money and your groceries and your—" He stopped. "Your dignity," I said. "You can say the word. Your dignity," he said. "I'm sorry. I should have been paying attention." "Yes," I said. "You should have. What do you intend to do about it?" This question is the one that matters more than the apology. Apologies without subsequent changed behavior are a specific kind of courtesy that provides temporary emotional relief without addressing the situation. Raymond knew I would ask this question. He had been preparing for it across the 6 weeks. Natalie and I are in couples counseling, he said. My idea, she agreed. We're working on the things that led to this, which are things that started before this and that I should have been more awake to. That's a good beginning, I said. We're also going to pay the household expenses separately from your accounts, he said. I'll cover the groceries and the household costs as long as we're living here. You shouldn't be paying for us. We're the ones living here on your generosity. That was always true, I said. I know, he said. I'm sorry it took this to make it visible. I want to tell you about the refrigerator as a piece of technology. Because the technology deserves understanding rather than the gloss of smart appliance that people use when they haven't thought about what smart means. The Samsung Family Hub is in its essentials, a Linux-based computer attached to a large cooling device. The computer has a touchscreen interface and an internet connection, and various software applications, of which the grocery ordering function is one. The applications connect to external services, in this case, grocery delivery services, through APIs, which are standardized interfaces for software-to-software communication. The payment integration is handled through the external service's own payment system, not through Samsung's. When you connect a payment method to a grocery delivery account through the refrigerator interface, you are connecting the payment method to the delivery service's account management system. The delivery service stores the payment information and applies it when orders are placed. The vulnerability that the household situation created was the vulnerability of any shared device with multiple payment methods. When more than one person has access to the settings and when those people have different financial interests, the payment method configuration becomes a point of potential conflict. Natalie had configured the refrigerator with her card as a payment option for household grocery orders. She had not apparently considered that I also had access to the settings interface and could change the configuration. This is a general principle of shared technology. When you grant someone physical access to a device, you grant them access to the device's settings unless you specifically restrict that access. Natalie had not restricted my access to the refrigerator's settings, which is understandable. It is, after all, my refrigerator in my house. But she had also not considered the implications of the access she was not restricting. The lesson that I drew from this, which I subsequently mentioned in a presentation I gave to the Sacramento Senior Technology Forum in November, is that smart appliances in shared households require the same kind of account management hygiene that smartphones and computers require. Clear assignment of administrative accounts, clear separation of payment methods, and the understanding that a device connected to a payment method is a potential financial exposure. The forum is a group of older adults who meet monthly to discuss technology topics relevant to their lives. I have been a member since 2015, and I speak occasionally on topics related to home network management and smart device security. The November presentation was titled, Who's Paying for What? Managing Financial Exposure in Connected Home Devices, and it attracted more attendance than any presentation I had given in 8 years. I did not tell the refrigerator story specifically, but the principles I drew from the refrigerator story were the organizing principles of the presentation, and several people came up afterward to tell me that they had never thought about their smart appliances in these terms, and that they intended to review their payment configurations. This is what technology literacy produces when it is applied. Not just the ability to use the tools, but the understanding of how the tools work and what that means for the people who use them. I spent 31 years trying to build this literacy in the organizations I worked for. The retirement years have been, in some respects, an extension of this work in a different context. Natalie came to me in November, which was 2 months after the Thursday kitchen conversation, and 6 weeks after the couple's counseling had begun. She came to me in the way that people come to people they have wronged, when they have arrived at the specific place where they are ready to address the wronging directly, rather than through the intermediary of a marital counseling process. She sat across from me at the kitchen table where the September conversation had happened, the table where I had my evening tea, and where the credit card statements had been laid out, and where she had looked at the window while I told Raymond about the lobster. She said, I need to say something to you directly. All right, I said. I was using your credit card, she said. I've been using it for 8 months, not 6. The dispute only went back 6 months. 8 months and approximately $5,600 total. I looked at her. More than I thought, I said. More than you thought, she said. I'm telling you because the counselor said I needed to be fully honest, not just honest about what you had already found. What was it for? I said, not accusatorially, with the genuine curiosity of someone who has been wondering about the specific shape of the thing. Things I wanted that we couldn't afford because Raymond's income it's been difficult this year. We have a mortgage that we stretched for and 2 car payments, and she stopped. That's not a reason. It's a context. Yes, I said. There is a difference between a reason and a context, but the context matters for understanding. I told myself it was for the household, she said. I knew it wasn't. The groceries, I told myself the discounted groceries were fine, because you're older and you eat less and you don't need the quality. I knew that wasn't right either. I was managing you. I was managing you. I was managing you like a situation rather than like a person. Yes, I said. I don't have a good explanation for why I let myself do that, she said. The counselor says there are patterns that lead to this kind of, she calls it financial exploitation of a family member. I've been in those patterns, and I didn't see myself in them. Do you see yourself in them now? I said. Yes, she said. What do you intend to do about it? I said. The question I asked, the question that matters more than the acknowledgement, she said. I want to make the money right. We can't do it all at once. Raymond and I worked out a schedule. $300 a month until the $5,600 is paid back. That's 18 months? I know that's slow. $300 a month is $300 a month, I said. It's real. What else? I'll do the groceries, she said. Real groceries from my account. Fresh. The things you actually eat. I'll stop. I'll stop managing the food as a way to save money at your expense. All right, I said. And I'd like to ask you something, she said, which is whether there's any version of this where we can have a relationship that isn't what it's been. Where I'm not managing you and you're not watching me. Where we're just... She stopped. I know I don't have the right to ask that. You have the right to ask it, I said. Whether you have the right to receive it depends on what you do with what you've said today. She nodded. That's fair, she said. Yes, I said, it is. I made tea. I made 2 cups. I set one in front of her. She looked at it. Then she looked at me. The refrigerator, she said. Yes, I said. You knew exactly what you were doing, she said. Yes, I said. I spent 31 years managing systems. I know how the payment integration works. You were managing me, she said. With the refrigerator. I was creating consequences, I said. That's different from managing you. I didn't tell you what to do. I redirected what you had been taking and put it somewhere it would do good. You experienced the consequences of your own choices meeting my response. That's not management. That's accountability. She thought about this. Is that what you'd call it if someone did it to you? She said. If someone did exactly what I did, redirected money I had taken without authorization and donated it to a children's home, I think I would say the response was proportionate and imaginative, I said. But I would rather not find out. She almost smiled. It was a small thing, the almost smile, but it was real. The Sacramento Senior Technology Forum's November presentation produced, as I mentioned, more attendance than I had seen in 8 years. 53 people, which is a large number for a voluntary Thursday morning gathering. The word had spread through the forum's network. Dorothy's talking about smart refrigerators and financial security is apparently a compelling combination. The presentation covered the general principles: device security, account management, payment method hygiene in shared households, the specific vulnerabilities that smart appliances introduce when shared among people with different financial interests. I used examples drawn from the general literature on smart device security and from the specific professional experience of a systems administrator who has spent 3 decades thinking about these problems at institutional scale. After the presentation, a woman named Elaine came to me. She is 81 and she has been coming to the forum since before I started attending. And she has the quality of someone who has noticed more than she has said for a long time. She said, "Dorothy, is this from personal experience?" I looked at her. "I don't need you to confirm it," she said. "But if it is, I want you to know that you handled it exactly right." "Thank you, Elaine," I said. "The children at St. Joseph's," she said. "Did they really have lobster?" I had not mentioned St. Joseph's by name in the presentation. "Yes," I said. "Good," she said. "Children should have lobster sometimes." The months from October through January had the quality of months during which something significant has been addressed and is settling into its new form. Raymond and Natalie were in counseling. The repayment schedule was being honored, $300 a month, which I deposited into an account I had opened for a specific purpose. The groceries were fresh. The second visa was current, and its payment history was unremarkable. I visited St. Joseph's in December, which I had not planned, and which Sister Margaret Ann had not expected. I went to return the container from a food delivery. They had returned it to me as a courtesy, not knowing I was the donor, and I ended up staying for 2 hours. I met several of the children, and I saw the kitchen with the stand mixer in operation, and I ate a piece of the bread, which was excellent. Sister Margaret Ann walked me out and said, "We'd like to formally acknowledge your gift, Mrs. Meadows Park. We usually mention donors in our annual report." "I'd prefer to be anonymous," I said. "The children asked about the person who sent the lobster," she said. "They want to thank whoever it was." I thought about this. "Tell them it came from someone who wanted them to know that good things sometimes come from unexpected directions," I said. "And that the unexpected direction in this case was a smart refrigerator." Sister Margaret Ann looked at me for a moment. Then she said, "I'll tell them that. It is February now. The account into which I have been depositing the monthly repayments has reached its first 3 contributions, and I've decided what I intend to do with it. When the repayment is complete, in 15 months, I will have $5,600 that Natalie has returned. I intend to donate it to St. Joseph's, which will bring the total of what the refrigerator situation has produced for St. Joseph's to approximately $9,400, which is more than the $5,600 Natalie took, and considerably more than the $3,600 Theo. The refrigerator orders produced. The refrigerator is in the kitchen. I look at it differently than I looked at it before September. Not with animus. It is an appliance. And animus toward appliances is a category error, but with the specific appreciation of something that turned out to be exactly the right tool at exactly the right moment, which is the highest compliment a systems administrator can give to a piece of technology. Natalie makes the groceries now. She shops carefully, more carefully than I expected, which has told me something about her that I had not previously known. She has good taste, and when she is not managing a situation for her own benefit, she applies the taste honestly. The produce she brings home is fresh. The meat is good quality. Last week she brought a wedge of Parmigiano Reggiano, the real kind, aged 24 months, because I had mentioned once that I liked it. She had remembered. This is small. I am not constructing a reconciliation narrative from a wedge of cheese. But it is real, and real small things are better than performed large ones. What do I know at 77, after 31 years in technology and 4 years of watching my household in September, and the orphanage and the counseling and the repayment and the Parmigiano Reggiano? I know that connected devices are only as intelligent as the people who configure them, and that the configuration of a connected device reflects the assumptions and intentions of the configurer, and that those assumptions and intentions are not always the assumptions and intentions of the other people who live with the device. This is a technical fact and also a human fact. I know that the appropriate response to discovering that a system has a vulnerability is to understand the vulnerability precisely before deciding what to do about it. 31 years of systems administration. Never patch a vulnerability without understanding what you are patching and why, and what the patch will do to the rest of the system. I understood the vulnerability. I understood the patch. The patch was the refrigerator redirected. I know that technology does not solve human problems. It creates options for addressing them, and it creates consequences when those options are exercised. The refrigerator did not solve the problem of a daughter-in-law who was using my credit card. It created a consequence that made the problem visible in a way that a direct accusation would not have, and the visibility of the problem created the conditions for addressing it. I know that children at orphanages should have lobster sometimes. This is not a principle that requires technology to understand, but technology can deliver the lobster when the occasion is right. And understanding technology well enough to recognize when the occasion is right is what 31 years of work produced in me. My name is Dorothy Constance Meadows Park. I am 77 years old. I spent 31 years as a systems administrator, and I understand how connected devices work. The refrigerator in my kitchen has a touchscreen and an internet connection and an ordering function and a payment integration. The default payment method is currently my second Visa. I have not changed it. It remains exactly where it is as a reminder to everyone in the house of what the technology is capable of and who understands it.